is Dr. Janet Everhard. Will you give us go get the microphone from Katie there and introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I can just be here a few minutes today, so that's why I was passing out sticky clings for your back window. No glue on a warm, dry window. I'm Dr. Janet Everhard, running for Congress in the 2nd District, and I have just been astounded. I've talked over and over again at how open people are out in voter land, out in the 8 counties. That is increasing more and more as more obscenities come out of Washington. After the Senate vote this last weekend, I actually had people coming up to me to express their confusion. You know, people who would say to me, I voted for Trump, and I'm just feeling really confused. and so we seized on that for a source of discussion, and this is becoming more and more hopeful. Let's just put it that way. Okay, good talking to everybody. Thank you.
Okay, hand the microphone back to Katie. Anybody else needs to introduce themselves or their organization?
Yeah, over here.
There you go, over here, Katie. There you are, Rina. Okay, I made you a special button today. Well, let's see, where did it go? See if we can find Rina's special button from the... I know you do, but we have big visible buttons. Okay, but
Okay.
So Rina is here, that's always making me come.
Take her away.
And your name is?
Mick Parker.
You have to be put it right close to your mouth and kind of go straight into it.
Mick Parker.
There you go.
Okay. My name is Mick Parker, and I'm here to announce a book discussion group about a book that I'm sure a lot of you people are familiar with. Peter Rose did a review on it, Dark Money, that he has up there on the counter. Am I getting through okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the book discussion is going to be at Hammond North on December the 17th at 3 o'clock in room 300. And as for those of you who may not be familiar with the book, Dark Money, by Jane Mayer, it's an expose on the exorbitant and undermining influence of big money on our democracy. And I don't know how many, I found out today that there's going to be a room for 20 people, and I don't know how many people have already committed to going. So I don't know how many openings there are right now. But if you're interested, contact me, and I can give you my telephone number now, 513-541-3547. And then you can also contact me after the meeting. I'll be glad to talk with you about it.
Fill out a card and we'll put you in our newsletter.
Okay.
There's the card.
Okay.
Our newsletter person is Peter. Raise your hand, Peter. If you want to be in our newsletter and you're not getting it, it went out this week. If you didn't get it, please see Peter. He'll give you a little card and he'll collect your name and address and stuff.
I'm going to repeat the time and the day just to make sure it got through.
Okay.
It's December 17th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and in room 300. But contact me because I have to find out about the number yet.
Okay. We have a whole group here called Move to Amend. Well, would you raise your hand, please? Will you please contact him? Because it sounds like you guys need to be in touch with each other.
You're right.
Right. Move to Amend is to move money out of politics and to make a constitutional amendment. So we need to get you people the purpose of this group is to connect everybody. We need to keep it happening. Thank you very much. Let's see. I just saw, there she is. Alice is over there. Alice, would you wave your hand? Alice?
Neither of us are Alice.
I'm sorry, Susan. Susan, there you go. Susan is a volunteer for Rina's project, and our speaker for today is Rina. There you raise your hand. Rina is right there, and so we do have a speaker today. It's also nice when they come in. Okay, Monica just came in too. Monica, wait, raise your hand. And Monica has this. Want to hold up your yard sign?
Okay, there's still $10. What a gift for Christmas or Hanukkah. Think about it.
$10 gift. There it is.
$10 gift
So we have the top part in Nepalese, or the bottom part rather in Nepalese. Top part in Nepalese and the bottom part in Arabic. So if you want one, they're up here. You pay me $10. They have stands that come with it. I was contacted by a member from JCC. Guy who worked there, he said somebody burned his sign. They had to call the police in his yard. I think he's in Clifton. He said everybody else in the street has all these signs, but his house seems to be targeted. They're not calling it a hate crime yet, but they're investigating. So, I gave him two, just, one for replacement. So let me know. But obviously people enjoy this. He's gotten more love since then from...
One of our members from this luncheon took one of those and had it in his yard, and he had somebody put 12 white roses on his car to thank him for welcoming him to the neighborhood. People see that, so that's a welcome thing. Other announcements?
December 14th, Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition, 6 o'clock at the Fire Museum. We'll be discussing our plan for the next year and the way we're going to. In fact, Alberta's showing you off the shirt up there in the front. We're going to be doing a lot of discussions about finances, how schools are financed. And one of the big things that you keep seeing in the news is FCC building this new stadium. And it's always hacking into tax abatements and the TIF districts and the TIF money. You realize every single time they have one of those agreements, $0 go to the schools. $0. They probably owe us close to $3.5 million in back money because of all these tax abatements. And nobody at City Hall is taking track of it. So we're going to be doing a public information request, finding out how much it should be. So, next Thursday.
Where
Go for it. Fire Museum.
Cincinnati Fire Museum, 6 o'clock.
I have one announcement. Oh, there goes Martha. Martha, go ahead.
This is very quick. There will be a protest around the country and here about net neutrality. On Thursday, we'll meet at the Verizon store there. I'm sorry, I think it's at 2 o'clock, but you can read about this on the Our Revolution Facebook page.
Our Revolution Facebook page. For those of you who are interested in the naturalization ceremonies, do I have anybody here who has been with me to a naturalization ceremony? If you, and it's a really fun thing. We have 3 coming up in December. One is this Thursday at 10 o'clock at St. John the Baptist. If you want to come see me. Then they've added one. Now, folks, they only add one if they have 70 more people to fit in. So and what happens is that we go as part of the League of Women Voters. I sneak in. I feel like this wolf in sheep's clothing there. I go in as a League of Women Voters woman, and I get people registered to vote. But we can hope how people who are immigrants would want to vote when they have the right to vote. So I feel like we're getting them in on the right side. So there are 2 of them on Thursday, December 21st. And if you want the information on this, it's over on there, or see me. I'd be happy to welcome you to the League of Women Voters and the naturalization ceremonies. They're really fun. So think about it. So the December 7th and December 21st. So we have 2 of those coming up. Please think about it. And that brings us to our program for today. This is William. William is the one, weren't you the one who got 12 roses on your car? He's the one who got roses on his car. I think that is so cool. He has great neighbors. He still has those roses. I can understand why you'd want to treasure them, because that's really special. Okay. There were 3 questions that were at the summit meeting on Wednesday night. I would like to deal with the first two. And I only want to deal with them for a few minutes because then we can go to Rina and get her talking about the United Way tax program. So, but I want to just, the suggestion was that we have this for the whole meeting, and I didn't feel it was justified to have it for the whole meeting. Because I think people got, hello?
Can I suggest we have Rina go first, and then I think...
Rina go first.
And
That sounds like it's a really good suggestion. Do you mind doing that?
not at all.
Let's do Rina, because she's here. Stop eating, Rina. Sorry about that. You had something to send out? Can we have somebody send out your stuff for you?
I do have stuff, wait a minute. Hopefully I won't get soy sauce all over it. I won't get soy sauce all over it. I'm gonna make sure I send it around. All right, this is what I'm passing around, so thank you.
There we go.
Show you. Okay. All righty, and Susan's going to help me as well.
Oh, wonderful. You guys are great.
So I know Alberta through League of Women Voters. I'm also a proud member of the League, and I would say if you haven't been to one of those naturalization ceremonies, it will make you cry, you know? It will make you cry going to a naturalization ceremony. Happiness cry. Just to remember why you are committed to this country in some way. So I'm here because I want something from you. Isn't that terrible? Everybody only comes to talk to you when they want something from you. What I want from you is to consider volunteering. And I want to talk to you about the United Way tax program, which Susan and I participate in. I am the tax program coordinator for the United Way. The United Way has been involved in a program called VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, for many, 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 many years. And you may be familiar with VITA. VITA is active throughout the country. In different parts of the country, different organizations do VITA. It's not always a United Way function. And some of you may also participate through the AARP, which also does free tax prep. So why would United Way, or why would you, as a civic-minded person, be interested in doing taxes? Well, I don't think I need to remind you, but taxes is the income from which government budgets are made, right? Taxes is the way that we share of our income, and then it gets spent on roads and bridges and schools and all the other things that we want to do, right? And more. That's true. And I mean, taxes is a collective collection from people, but almost everybody has to pay taxes. You know what they say, death and taxes, right? But not everybody has necessarily the skills to prepare their own taxes, and a lot of people are very afraid of filing their own taxes. Now, the stereotype about taxes is, oh, it's this horrible thing and we hate it, we hate it, we hate it. But for low and moderate working families, what happens is that taxes get taken out of their paycheck every week or every 2 weeks. And come January, they finally get a chance to file their tax return and get that withholding back. So the families that Susan and I work with are usually very eager for tax time because they are waiting for their tax refund. And their tax refund is all the money that got taken out of their paycheck during the year because they were being taxed even though they are below the income level at which they should be taxed, plus something we call, well, either the earned income credit or the child tax credit. Is anyone here familiar with the earned income credit? Tell us.
It's usually for people with low-income people with children and also for disabled people who work.
Well, so the low-income tax credit is, and the child tax credit, exactly, are specifically designed anti-poverty programs. The United States' biggest anti-poverty program, executed through the tax system, so it's totally without shame, without barrier. You can get it, and what it does is it offsets the payment of payroll taxes and other local taxes, sales taxes, property taxes that you pay as a low or moderate income worker. So it's not taking away your federal taxes. What it's doing is it's offsetting some of those other taxes that you pay, and it's a refundable credit. So if you are a low or moderate wage working family with children, you can get some of that money back, and people consider that a huge part of their annual budget. The people we work with, they're going to get 5, 10, 15% of their annual budget in that tax refund through the money that they got withheld, plus their child tax credit and their earned income tax credits. It can be $5,000, and we know, we talk to our taxpayers, and what are they spending that money on? First up, utility bills, rent, groceries, and paying off Christmas maybe a little bit, but people get a lot of car repairs, especially like our Claremont County taxpayers. It's all going to car repairs. A lot of it's going to Duke. But at any rate, this is money that families count on year-round, but the only way that they can get it is file their taxes. So what we are looking for is people who have the skills to help with that, because in order to file your taxes, if you can do it yourself, that's great. But filing taxes does require a level, these days almost everybody does it on a computer. There are a few people who do it on paper, but they're pretty rare. So it does require some computer skills, it requires access to the internet, and it requires a level of reading and writing and interpreting regulations. Some people have that skill set, some people don't. If you have that skill set, you can help somebody who doesn't. That's the easy way to put it. So what we do is we train tax volunteers, and we are starting training now. I have a tax training class going on as we speak, and we had one last weekend, we'll have one next weekend. And we train them, and then they certify through an IRS online test, and then they go to about 34 different sites throughout the community, and they sit down and do taxes with people. And what happens, and I'm going to ask Susan to talk about this, is you sit down one-on-one with someone, you ask them a bunch of questions, you fill out a bunch of paperwork, you enter some information in a computer, whiz bang, a couple hours later, you have completed their tax return. And whether they owe money or they're getting money back, they are just so relieved that it is done. So, Susan, tell them about tax volunteering.
I've been volunteering with
Very
the
close to your mouth.
Close enough. I've been volunteering with the VITA tax program for 6 years. I highly recommend it. It is very well organized. They make great use of your time as a volunteer. The tax law training, the tax software training is exceptionally good. It really is easy to certify to help people. Unless you have a terrible phobia related to numbers or computers, I would highly recommend that you consider doing this. I have helped people who have in the past spent $200 to have somebody else do their tax return, which completely eats up their refund or their earned income tax credit. We are keeping hard-earned money in the pockets of the working poor. We also are helping retirees, and again, the older we get, the harder it is to keep up with the technology, so a lot of the people that we help are there because they're on Social Security and need to get a refund for a portion of their income that comes to them through Social Security. So, as I say, it's very well run, it's very satisfying, and it's easy, so sign up.
Susan is one of our, like circuit riders. She actually volunteers like at 6 or 7 different locations. So the way it works is we do standard locations, so right near here, North Avondale Recreation Center's one, Community Action Agency's another one, just to give you an idea. So they're usually in churches, recreation centers, or nonprofit agencies. They are targeted, they might not be in your neighborhood. So for example, I have a volunteer from Mason. I say, sorry, we don't have one in Mason because we're targeting neighborhoods that are predominantly low and moderate income working families. So we're not in every single neighborhood. Plus we don't have enough volunteers to be in every neighborhood. But we are in many neighborhoods, including just around here. We are generally on Saturday mornings and weeknights because most of our volunteers are working. We have some daytime activities as well. We do some specialty volunteering that Susan's a part of, so we have like a specialty site for just a couple days working with the refugees at Catholic Charities, a specialty site at the probation office working for folks who are part of the federal probation office, a specialty site at the Hearing and Deaf Center for people who need ASL translation. But generally, you would be at a site in the community doing taxes for people. So I want to just briefly talk to you about what the training involves, but I also want to tell you, I also have Some of you may want to come to a tax site and have your taxes done as well, or tell your neighbors about how to do that, because that's the other part of what I want you to know is this service can be for you. You can give the service and you can get the service, and that's the point too, right? That it's people helping people, that it's a peer process. So, I mean, the key in this is volunteer income tax assistance. So, yeah. So, in terms of what would be expected of you if you decided to volunteer, is I need you to kind of think to yourself if there's a location and a time and day that you'd be willing to volunteer, because I don't want you to go through the whole training and then say, well, I want to do Tuesday mornings, and we don't have any Tuesday mornings, right? It would be a waste of your time. I also want you to think that you would be volunteering at least 4 times during the tax season, which is end of January through April, because there is a lot of training involved, and you're going to get better the more you do. But I don't ask you to do all 13 weeks of tax season, although Susan does. But the more time you're going to put in, the better you're going to get at it. You'll have fun. It will become a hobby. Like some people golf, some people do garden, and some people do taxes. And some people do a combination of these things. Well, I will tell you, some of my tax volunteers, it's like, we got to get to the end of tax season because I'm just about ready to start my garden, right? It's kind of a thing. So you want to know that you're going to have some Saturdays or some weeknights that you're willing to put in about 4 hours at one of the locations in the community, and I have all the lists of community sites here, which we'll also pass around. I'll put them here. We go all the way from Grant County in Kentucky, Dry Ridge, Williamstown, Kentucky, all the way up to Middletown. We got sites in Dearborn County, Indiana. We got sites in Claremont County. You guys are all Cincinnati Democrats, so you're in Cincinnati. We get that. Okay, we got lots of sites in Cincinnati that need your help. Our sites can get very, very crowded, especially in the last week of January and the first 2 weeks of February. We are swamped, because remember, all our people are expecting a refund and they're waiting on it to pay their utility bills. So when we need people the most is Saturdays in February. North Avondale, people are waiting 3-4 hours easy. That's one of the sites she volunteers. Yeah, I feel badly about people waiting, but on the other hand, they will get their taxes done that day, and it's what we can do, realistically. So if you decide you want to volunteer and cut down on that wait in North Avondale with Susan, we will train you. You can volunteer without going to any classroom training, but I would not recommend it for your first year. Let us teach you a little bit first. I think that's safer.
For those of us who are a little number phobic, I assume that everything's done on calculators these days.
Actually, she asked about being number phobic. I would tell you I have the characteristics of a good tax volunteer, epitomized by Susan here. High ethical sense and civic commitment. Because it is the ethics, keeping the confidentiality of the person you work with, treating them with respect, completing an accurate tax return no matter what. That's the highest quality that we want. Second, you have to at least like computers, or at least be comfortable with computers. It is all done on a computer. You probably want to like puzzles, because that's what it really comes down to, is kind of solving puzzles. You're going to be talking to people one-on-one, so yeah, we can accommodate extremely shy people, but it will be you'd probably have to work with someone else, because you've got to ask people questions. They're going to tell you, well, I've got my daughter and my granddaughter living with me and my nephew, and you have to ask questions and figure out who goes on that tax form. So you want to be able to ask questions and enter information into a computer. The computer does the math. You do not need math. You do not need to be a tax person before. You don't have, it helps if maybe you've done your own taxes at least once, but you don't have to be a CPA. You don't have to be any of those things. As I said, we will train you. There is a test that we have to do that United Way and us don't come up with, the IRS comes up with. When you pass that test, you are certified. As long as you do taxes within the scope of your training, you do what we were trained to do, you are protected under the Volunteer Protection Act from liability. So people are really worried, well, I'm going to sign that tax form. Actually, you are preparing it on behalf of that taxpayer. You talk them through it, you get the answers, you enter them in the computer. At the end, you explain what was on that tax form, and that taxpayer has to sign that they understand that they are responsible for that tax return, that they gave you the information and you entered it. And then you are not liable. You would be liable if you made stuff up and totally went against all the rules. Or you're not going to do that because you guys are the Cincinnati Democrats. You wouldn't be in this room if you were gonna do that kind of stuff. So you are like my target key, perfect market, and I can't thank Alberta enough for inviting me, because you are exactly who I need. Have any of you already done AARP or VITA? Or been to a tax site? You will really love it, actually, because like Susan says, it's rewarding. You get to talk to people. Some of our tax sites are, the people are really interesting. You will have a conversation with someone, and then they go on their merry way. You don't have to feel like you carry their entire lives on your back. Just that one tax return. So, what questions do you have for me? Or Susan? Ma'am?
Are there computers there?
Yes. Yes, the computers are already there. And yes, in terms of bringing kids, since I see this little one, it's work-outable. It's not ideal if they're old enough to need a lot of, to be talking, but he'd be fine. Yeah, oh, and we don't talk politics with our taxpayers. You will hear rants on all sides. Actually, it's really kind of cool. I would say my volunteers for this program are all over the map politically, all over the map, and that makes it really interesting. Really all over the place. No matter what Congress comes up with in the next couple weeks, we will still be doing taxes based on the 2017 tax law in January through April of 2018. So one other thing, when we talk about taxes, we're also, taxes are, the Affordable Care Act, right, is all wrapped up in taxes, so we are also helping make sure that people get the Affordable Care Act benefits. We're also making sure that they can get education, because a lot of our people have to file their taxes to get the FAFSA, to get secondary education. So there's all these secondary cascading benefits that go with getting people their taxes filed. So I guess my next step would be, I'm going to sit here for a while, and if you're interested, maybe I could get your name and email, and then I could send you some contact info about training and so forth. You've got it all on here, and where it says United Way volunteer, that's me. I'm the person who you would get if you emailed. But nonetheless, if I can get your name and email directly, if you want to be contacted directly about volunteering, I will get back to you tomorrow or the next day. Tell you when the various training opportunities are. My whole job is to make sure that you and taxpayers get together at a tax site with computers and forms. Put the volunteers together with the taxpayers, that's my job. So if you are interested, I will make it happen and make sure to make use of your time. Anything else, Susan?
We're good.
All right.
We're good. Thank you, Rina. We really appreciate you presenting this program for us. I have to tell you, I learned so much about Cincinnati from this group. I didn't know that there was tax prep going on. I didn't know all kinds of stuff. But this group is nice to find out about that stuff, how to help in our community. And that brings us, oops, I left my agenda, my lesson plan. I come every week with a lesson plan. Maybe you think that's silly, but I don't. Okay. Now, what they did at the meeting on Wednesday night was they had everybody assigned to a table of 14. They had a couple hundred people there, 200-300. A lot of people came out. They filled up all of the chairs and all of the tables that they had set up. I think they were impressed by how many people came in. And they gave us 3 questions. And I'm going to give you the first one now, and we're going to discuss it as a table. And what I'd like you to do, those of you, I want to make sure that everybody is at a table where you can actually speak to somebody. So you may have to move your seat, folks. So I would like to make sure that somebody who is at the meeting, and you know who you are, would you those of you who hold up your hands, let's see if we can't distribute you to the different. Now, Bennett, if you move over, that would do it. Everybody have a person who is there? Folks, you are responsible at your table. We're not going to write anything down because they took all the writing, but I can give feedback to the Democratic Party if you like about what happened. And we can always send them the video of what we discussed. We can do that, because Dan is videotaping everything.
Are you gonna time this as we're?
Yes, I will time you. So I think, let's do 10 minutes. They gave you 15 minutes. Let's do 10 minutes on the first question. And the first question is, what is the role of the Democratic Party? It was very general, and it actually evoked all kinds of things. And I will be interested to hear some of your things. I will add to what you contribute when we'll do a kind of speak out at the end. So I'm giving you 10 minutes right now, and would you talk about the topic, what is the role of the Democratic Party? Assuming most of you are Democrats, which I hope is a pretty good bet. So please, at your table, or if you don't feel there enough at your table, move to a space where you, yes.
Well, it was actually about the Hamilton County Democratic Party.
How you doing?
Tested. You want us to do the same thing they did at the meeting and generate what we think the Democratic Party ought to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
What the Democratic Party, what is the role of the Democratic Party? What do you think the Democratic Party ought to be doing?
How you doing?
Can we what?
Oh, no.
No microphones for the next 10 minutes.
I'll do my best. I'm going to start.
Go for it.
Maybe I'll start. Why did you like that? What they did was set on the table with about 15. They said it was pretty good.
I actually left.
Everybody was there.
How you doing?
Well,
Better late than never.
If you guys want to move over to this table? Want to move over to this table?
Okay, yes. We could do it. Oh, okay. That's my jacket, Mike? I gotta leave in 5 minutes.
there were the role that they play in getting candidates, the party. So the conversation was about the Hamilton County everything.
And then we'll talk for the next question. You three tables on the other side of the room are going to get to have somebody report out on what you said. So who's? No way. So. Okay. You're going to report out, right?
Led the discussion and took all the notes, but it won't.
Okay, our table talked about the role of Democratic Party as being that of resist the wave of populist nationalism. To resist the wave of populist nationalism and to do some more education on the civics level, since we no longer have civics, because there are a lot of people who don't understand how government works, local or federal.
Good. Thank you. Somebody report out.
Okay, our table did an awesome job, and we talked about a number of things. We said, first of all, anything, what can the Democratic Party do? Anything which is legal to sabotage the ridiculous agenda of the Republicans and the Trump administration.
You're here.
Okay, next we said that we want to narrow the focus on what we must do as Democrats in order to appeal to a wide range of people. I think it was the gentleman over there who a few weeks ago said that we may be focusing on the wrong agendas, and we need to be focusing on what the middle class is really looking for right now, which is relief. We also said we need to, again, we need to appeal to the economics and make sure they understand things like exactly what this tax bill is going to do and not do for the middle class, and what it's going to do for the billionaires in our country. We also talked about teaching the difference between the Democratic and the Republican Party, and then finally focusing on taking state legislatures, which are so important in order to achieve our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, well done. Somebody from this table.
See if we got all this. We decided that first the Democratic Party should start looking for viable candidates. Support common people and listen to its own people. Then we talked a little bit about what Aftab said about how he got elected. Keep it simple, talk about what people want, relief, and show up. That was what he was saying.
Thank you. Well done, well done. Okay, we're going to move on now. No, we're going to go, they get to report on the next question. Okay, and the next question is what, and we're doing exactly the questions that they had on Wednesday night. So I want you to know that these are not necessarily the questions I would choose, but these are the ones that they chose to do for the entire group of hundreds of people. So the second question they had was, what should be the structure of the party? What is the party's structure?
I ran off 20 copies of the structure. If anybody would like it, just put up your hand.
Yeah, I'd like. I know.
There we go. 20 copies of the structure coming up. I bet you didn't know there were this many precincts in this county. Anybody want to guess the number of precincts?
108.
And tell us how many, look at the paper and find out how many precincts. And Further, look on the paper, tell us how many precincts there are in Cincinnati.
Currently, there should be, there are currently 277 elected.
Can't hear you.
Well, how many precincts do we have?
559 precinct executives. Currently, 277 are elected, 101 are appointed. The rest are empty.
So they need precinct executives, folks. Do the math. Well, how many, what's the total number? 559 precincts, folks, currently. And they're represented, yes, question.
I just wanted to comment, I was at the meeting on Wednesday, and I think one of the things is that they were focusing on Hamilton County.
Right.
So it wasn't, I mean, as our conversation goes, it's focusing on the Democratic Party in Hamilton County.
Right. And I'll go over the election of our leader in a minute. So we're 100. I was appointed before I was elected because it was a vacant seat and they found somebody to fill it. So they appoint people before they get elected. So they're official, and they're actually official. Every precinct, 559 precincts, each has a...
Question is...
What is the structure? I'm just telling you, we currently have 559 precincts. And 181 are vacant. Okay, ready? 9 minutes, let's go. What should the structure be? Just wanted you to know that it's a big structure, 559 precincts.
They might have called
All I have is you really need this many things. Pre prep and
investigating what?
you might want to.
Kind. Okay, that's it, folks. We need to report out. Who's giving? Anybody know how to start? Thank you, Peter. Who's reporting it?
Oh, hello. Yeah, well, we talked especially about these items. There should be clear job descriptions for every single office so that everybody honestly knows what sphere of responsibility is involved at every level. We also had a very good description coming from Minnesota that there need to be precinct caucuses at which there are elections on a regular basis. Another factor we felt very important is that there be two-way communication system so that the people who are full-time people at the top are really letting everyone know on a regular basis what their positions are, and there has to be a vehicle for smaller groups like this or even neighborhood groups to get ideas into the mainstream of the state system. Anything else, Cindy?
Backup for candidates, because like Dr. Everhard was saying, or someone told me, that they don't even know about her really. There's no real communication between all these various groups, and it's incredible. And there are also, there are no job descriptions for within the Democratic hierarchy here. There are no job descriptions. There are no job descriptions for what was that? Precinct captains.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
Well,
Go on the Hamilton County website and find it.
well, it doesn't function.
Hamilton County Democratic.
Yeah, I know. I was somebody who was asked to be a precinct captain years ago. I had no idea what it was. I showed up at the what do you call it, where people were voting, and if I'd stayed longer, I would have been voted in. I lost by a couple of votes because I left early. Nobody knows who they're voting for.
Right.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
But there is a job description, is what I'm saying.
Okay, because we were under the impression that there was no written job.
Obviously, we need to know about what's going on. Okay.
And training.
Who's at this table? And training, they want training.
I'm the lucky guy.
You're the lucky guy. Here you go, David.
Thank you. Okay, so what should the democratic structure be? Well, we don't have a big problem the way it's structured now, as much as we know about it. But the point was made that structure should follow function. We also asked, do we really need 559 executives? And that maybe quality should be thought of over
They're
quantity.
expected to go and walk at each house.
Well, that's just it. And
And most of them are 500 houses.
I've never had anybody come to my house. Has anybody here
No, I
had a
haven't.
precinct executive? In the era of social media and the internet, maybe we could be taking better advantage of that. I get information all the time from the state, at the state level, the national level, almost every day. But from the Hamilton County Democratic Party, I very rarely get anything. So, and just better communication, be better informed by the Central Committee. There seems to be a lot of big question marks as to what is really going on. And like you said, what is a precinct captain supposed to do? So.
Good job.
Last table, nice job, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're annoyed that it seems like there's a small group who decide who the candidates are going to be and they endorse people before the election. Example, Tracy Hunter and Brian Gary. And how that is really... That's what I'm saying. She was, the other guy was endorsed and they didn't want her to run. Okay, that screws things up. That's what we talked about.
If there are job descriptions, then there's no accountability for the job descriptions at this point. So that might be an issue more than the fact that people need to be held accountable. If you're holding an elected position, you need to be accountable for it.
We also talked about the fact that the Democrats in this state need to get together or whatever, because you get on a list and everybody's asking you for money. There's nothing like a big fund and how it's going to be distributed. And I mean, how many of you have gotten gazillions of emails asking, oh, take a survey and at the end it's give us money. But there's no coordination.
Oh, on my group on Wednesday night, one of the things they said was that one of the functions that ought to be happening is that we ought to be coordinating with the other groups in town that would be sympathetic to the Democratic cause. We ought to be finding out about groups like Moms Demand Action. We need to find out about Sierra Club. And they mentioned all the groups that we've had this past year. And I'm thinking, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Why doesn't the Democratic Party take more interest in what we're doing so that more of what we're doing can be happening across the county?
Another thing we talked about was we need to get the young people involved. We need to start Democratic clubs at UC and Xavier and high schools. That's what Republicans are doing. We're really missing the boat here. And we could make it a social thing, you know, feed them and have music and whatever, and make it a party and get them involved, and we're not doing that.
Every organization at colleges knows the only way you get people to come is pizza.
We can do pizza.
Pizza. Our table talked a lot about precinct captains. We have people from Montgomery, from Pleasant Ridge, from Clifton, from Paddock Hills. None of us are precinct captains, but we're all interested in becoming some. And I'm sorry?
Whole table.
Yes, the whole table. But some of us have been extremely concerned about the summit that we had and these questions. There was no recognition that all these young people probably came hoping to talk about our platform, our ideas. How do we approach people? What are we for?
Yeah.
And that wasn't, I mean, maybe that's another meeting, but they missed the boat on that, in the opinion of some of us. One of our members thought that AFTAB should give Tim Burt lessons. So, I mean, if we could just, the precinct captains do get onto the central committee, which would give us quite a say in things. We've got to change the Democratic Party. It's got to be responsible to the people. Now, we also talked about the difficulty. It's not hard to knock on doors in my neighborhood in Paddock Hills. It is difficult in Price Hill and much of Avondale. And so, we're not just turning out each other after all. We're all going to vote, right? We're not need to just turn out each other. We need to turn out the people that are not voting, but are titular Democrats. They're basically kind of on our side, but they don't turn out. So we have to go and try to help however we can. On the street, at rallies, at churches. We can't necessarily just knock on doors because the people that aren't voting don't necessarily open their doors. They think we're bill collectors or something.
Alberta, did you want this side to do it too, or were you just doing the different sides?
Just doing the other one. You have something to add?
Well, everything you guys are saying they're really great ideas, and most of them have already been talked about or we've tried to implement it. We had a 5-year plan that we were trying to do. It fell apart. Worked my butt off on it too.
Why did it fall apart?
Because there's no support. There is just simply no support. And they tried to support us. They gave us money to have people get together, but people get tired of it. It's volunteering. It's time consuming. If you have a job, if you have a family, people just drop off, especially the younger people. They're involved in so many things. So what I would suggest each of you does is go to the Hamilton County Democratic Party website, because there's so much information there. Read through the whole thing. We have clubs. We have clubs at St. X. We have clubs at Xavier. We have clubs at UC. We have people volunteering to knock on doors, to go to doors. There's so much going on that people just aren't aware of. And this has made me realize that somehow or another, we have to figure out how to connect with one another. I think that's where we're missing the boat. Yeah, I think that's the big thing, is because I was so involved in it, I immersed myself in it for about 10 years. So I'm really familiar with all of it. But then, then I hear you guys and I think, oh man, they don't know. And why don't you know? It's because we're not getting the word out about our organization. So I'll stop there.
I just wanted to add that with regard to what Alberta said, why doesn't the party latch on to some of the things that we have done here at the with the group at Blue Gibbon with the speakers. I think that what we should do is have somebody write it up and present it as something to be posted on the Hamilton County Democratic website to let them know exactly what's. I know they are aware. Caleb's aware. Tim Burke is aware. But if other people touch on that website and they see what you're doing here, that you're bringing in all these people, United Way, then perhaps this will give us more highlight, impetus, whatever. And it's a newsletter, but I mean, we just need to write a piece that can go and be posted on that website. Thank you.
Will they put it on?
Yes.
That'd be great idea.
Yes.
In a place where people will see.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there not a link to it on their website?
I don't know.
I don't believe there is.
They do talk about us, theoretically.
At the meeting last Wednesday, much of the focus and the reason for the meeting was to decide how we replace Tim Burke, whether it's 1 or 2 people, whether or not they get paid. And frankly, I felt they were looking at the wrong end of the spectrum. I feel that the success of an organization is not based at the people at the top, it's based on the people on the bottom. And that's the way it works in corporations, that's the way it works in big business, and that's the way it probably works for any volunteer organization. So whoever's at the top, the priority must be, as others have said, the precinct committee people who are the ones in the neighborhood. And frankly, in terms of whether or not we have too many with 559, we have too many who are not going out in the neighborhoods and doing what they're supposed to. So who is ever out at the top, whoever is at the top, whether it's 1 or 2, paid or not paid, we have to be organizing the people at the bottom to train them to go out and to talk about why we're Democrats and to talk about why you need to get out and vote. But that's where it's going to happen. It's not going to happen by us, and believe me, I've done it. Putting out signs, even making telephone calls are okay, but the real way to get to people is door to door. And those are the neighbors that need to do that. So if it takes 100 people to do that, or if it takes 1,000 precinct executives, as long as they're going out, that's what's going to make a difference long term.
Well, one of the things that the Republicans have done is to make the precincts larger. My precinct is one of the smallest in the city, It has 220 families. It takes me 4 hours to walk, not to stop off and knock on doors, but just to walk takes me 4 hours. Just want you to know that now the precincts are twice that size. They're talking about 500 and 600. They deliberately made the precincts larger to make it more difficult for us. Seriously.
I have an idea. I mean, when I've shown up at places like Portman's office, there aren't many people there with me. And if we have all these organizations that sympathize with each other, why don't we plan that all of us from all over this Hamilton County will meet at Portman's office at 2 o'clock on a certain day? So we're visible, because we're invisible. We don't even know who the other people are. And if I think we need to have body counts. I don't think just being here is enough. Maybe in the future it will affect us with our ideas, but I really think we need a march.
And next.
Can we do our third question, because I'm running out of time?
We're running out of time. I do want to mention just the leader business. The third question was, what are the characteristics of a good leader? And my thought was, even if the good Lord himself came down and made a leader, it wouldn't be good enough, because we really need somebody really spectacular. Somebody who has an independent income so that they can take half of their time to be the head of the Democratic Party. It is not a paid position. And I just want to mention that Tim Burke's term ends after the primary in 2018. There's going to be a vote for a new leader in the first week of June. And Tim may run again for re-election then, and then resign in December 2018. So this thing about the leader is going to be happening, and we need to be thinking about a leader, but the good Lord himself came down and it wouldn't be good enough, yeah.
Actually, that's probably a good idea, that what you're saying, elect somebody, but let Tim stay until after the November elections and let him resign. Because whoever's going to take over needs to shadow Tim and see what all that man has done. And
Well, that may be happening now, we don't know.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a thought. But I just wanted you to know what the parameters were. Okay, folks, you are wonderful. Again, thank you for being welcoming to Rina Saperstein and the United program. I want to mention our next speakers. On December 12th, we have Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. On the 19th, the Ohio Democratic Party with David Pepper. He's the head of the whole, he needs to hear from you folks. He is the head of the state Democratic Party. We can make your voice heard on the 19th. On January 9th, we're having David Mann. And we're having a celebration that day, because that will be our 1-year anniversary. We will have had a speaker every Tuesday for a year. So on our next schedule, it says Happy Holidays. We will not be meeting on the 26th or the 2nd. There is a handout for coming speakers if there's not enough. It's on my Facebook. It's on the Facebook for the Greater Cincinnati Democrats on Facebook. Oh, and we have to finish off the food. I've been told again and again today already. We have a lot of food. We need to make sure it goes home with people. Please go to that. And if you want to see me about naturalization, see me. Guys, you are wonderful. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. It was really nice of you. Thank you.